Um, I've joked with a few people since we've started here that I don't really miss my kids. I don't really think about them. I definitely haven't called back to them or video chatted with them. I think Beth was asking me about that. But I do. I miss my kids quite a bit. A few of you guys actually know them. I have a 10 and a 12-year-old, two little boys. And my 12-year-old specifically, he's quite the young man. I remember when he was first born, we thought he was just this hyper intelligent, just really intuitive, resourceful little kid. And I remember when he was really young, I just remember being like, I don't know if he's ever going to really develop a personality. Yeah, he's smart, but he's kind of just there. And as he's grown up, he has this trait about him that keeps coming up. And it's this characteristic about him that really impresses me and moves me. And I've just been absolutely blessed to watch it. It's taught me so much. Has a habit of going into a space, into a room of people, and finding whoever is the quietest, whoever is the outcast. He'll find whoever is got an issue, maybe they have a mental issue. It does not matter. There is no reason for him. He will immediately go to that person and befriend them. It's the weirdest thing. I've never seen anything like it. I remember it was just this last year for summer camp. Lori was telling me about this, how there was this young man, his name was Caleb, and he would come into camp every day and he would just scream in the back of the room. And he couldn't help it. He was so overwhelmed with everything, and so they would just go put him in the corner and let him cry all day. It was that moment where Cale went and made friends with him. And so Lori was telling me that later Caleb goes up to Lori and says, I knew I needed to come to camp. I've been praying for a friend. God finally brought me. You guys remember when we were back in I may be saying this wrong, the ancient village, what was it called? Katrin? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, Katrin.
Okay. And we went into that little tiny house, and we were sharing the story out of Luke chapter 5, where Jesus was going to teach, and the word got out. Everybody was coming. Everybody was excited to come listen to Jesus. So it was like a tour bus that dropped off at the front door, and a bunch of Americans and Koreans and a bunch of people got together and sat in this tiny little room. But then something incredible happened. There was a group of men that brought their friend, a paralyzed man, in, and there was no room, so they dropped him in from the ceiling. I just kept thinking, Cale for sure would have been carrying that paralyzed man. He would have made himself small enough to say, I need to take a moment here and realize there's some value to this. The prophet Elijah in 1 Kings actually has this really cool interaction where he's on a mountain. And the first element comes by and this huge wind comes in. And Elijah notes, God's not in the wind. And there's a giant earthquake. God's not in the earthquake. And lastly, a huge fire comes in. He still says, no, God's not in that fire. But he does say, in a small little whisper at the very end, he says, I hear God. In the smallest whisper. And so I'm out here, I'm really enjoying this trip, but I'm going to be honest, I'm really, really overwhelmed with it all. I feel incredibly inadequate. I feel like I don't have enough knowledge, right? I feel like I don't have enough experience. Who am I? God's done way more than I could ever imagine, but who am I? How do I fit into this? In John 3:30, we have John the Baptist, son of Zechariah, who was a teacher here in Jerusalem. And John the Baptist, he taught, God must be big, we must be small. In his increase is my decrease. So what does that mean? What does it mean to decrease? So I'm a very, very practical person. I need to know exactly what it is that I need to do to be more like Jesus, to glorify him and to move his kingdom forward. And so it's right there in John 3:30. I need to decrease. I need to be small. Just like Israel. I've been here and I'm like, I can't believe how small this is. Not only is their population small, but geographically it's the size of Arizona. It's tiny. But what an incredible testament that God is using this in a really miraculous way. Just like the paralyzed, who was a nobody by social standards, he was a nobody, because the Jews believed that if you're paralyzed, it's because you're a sinner. The outcast, right? My son Cale would have stepped in and said, let's take this small thing let God make it really big. What we do about ourselves, what does that really mean? To be honest, I'm still struggling with this as much as I've been able to figure out so far. I have to learn to put my own preferences aside. I have to see somebody and see their value so much that I say your preference is going to supersede mine right now. What you need to be great, what you need to get closer to God is the most important thing right now. And so it's more than just being kind. It's stepping in and having a real relationship with somebody. It's not being afraid to put your hand on their shoulder and to look them in the eyes and tell them that you love them, that they have incredible value. People are so valuable. They're so valuable. When I was a kid, I was so naive, I thought how important I was. But then I realized everybody is. In God's eyes, anyways, right? So I don't want to leave here realizing that I'm small and insignificant. I want to realize that I am small because I choose to be, because I have a God that can see big. We can change the world, we can change our culture, we can change our society, we can change relationships, we can change our friendships. All by the person that's within arm's reach. It's those small little things that really, really, really matter. More than I've ever realized. So it's my encouragement to you. Start. Be more than just kind. Be loving. Be accepting. Be willing to step into a relationship. Guys, I'm going to give us just a couple of minutes to yourself. Take a breather. Relax. We'll go into some contemplative prayer, and at the end of it, I'll just close this out, and we'll continue on the journey, so to speak, yeah? Let's give it a couple minutes, guys.